obviously about what has to be proven in terms of the prejudice, but when it's an extreme case, what the Supreme Court is saying in Skilling is there's a presumption. And I believe that this court has already made findings over the last 9 months that this is an extreme case with respect to the quantum of pretrial publicity, the way in which it's being monitored by the public, the speed with which these proceedings, even this week, are being dissected and broadcast through all of the technology channels that we have. So it's our view that this is the extreme case that the Supreme Court talked about in Skilling. We wouldn't have any state action giving rise to this problem if we didn't have cameras in the courtroom. And that's why we think that exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 need to be managed in the way we've asserted. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Ballard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly, Mr. Novak's misrepresented the state's position. We're not going beyond what the victim representative has asked for. As we made clear in our briefing this morning, that we filed this morning, we are asking that these exhibits, unredacted, be published in the courtroom. Not electronically, but they be published in the courtroom. It's not the camera in the courtroom that's the problem. The issue here is the public's right. This is a public hearing. The court's ruled that it's a public hearing. Kearns Tribune recognizes that preliminary hearings are public, and the public that is here in this courtroom should be able to see the exhibits that are admitted and that the court is going to rely on. And that is even more important to the victim representative's right to be able to be present and to observe these proceedings. Thank you.
All right, counsel.
Your Honor, if I may, I'll be brief. I want to begin by saying thank you to both the parties, to the state, to the defense, to the court. Today, the time that's being taken today and the nimbleness that's required to talk about things like a transcript in open court is a challenge. I recognize that it presents difficulties and that it takes time. And I want to begin by thanking both the parties and the court for taking the time to do that. It's important to the public, and I appreciate the court doing that. I know the public does as well. The only thing that I want to say with respect to this question about admissions or confessions is something that I hope will help the court. The court is looking at Rideau. It's looking at Estes. These cases from 50 or 60 years ago in a different media environment under the United States Supreme Court. I want to urge the court to do what the court has done before, and that's to look at Algier under the United States Supreme 2011. Court. I want to urge Utah Supreme Court case. It's obviously in the wake of Rideau. It's obviously in the wake, and that's to look at. It's here in this state. Unanimous Utah Supreme Court upholding a decision made by Judge McCleve below in a case that has striking parallels to this one. In the Algier case, there was a murder trial.
Checking my other stream.
The court received a letter, a notarized letter from an inmate saying the defendant in this case has confessed to me. Told me that he was involved in the shooting, gave me details of it, threatened me and my family if I did that. I want the court to know that. That was provisionally sealed.
So they're referencing a previous case.
For many of the same reasons that the court could conceivably consider keeping some of this information from the public. The court did a two-step analysis. It began by trying to determine whether or not there was a presumptive right of access to that document. The answer is yes. There is a presumptive right of access to this proceeding as well. Like Mr. Ballard just said, because this is a preliminary hearing, there's a presumptive right of access for the public. The second question was simply whether there's some kind of balancing that should be done. Notably, in paragraph 17 of that Algier case, it stressed something that we have said over and over again, which is much of the information that would be revealed through that letter had already become public at that point. And the idea of sealing a document that contained allegations or details that were already in the public sphere would only create the impression that information was being kept from the public when it was not. We stress what we did yesterday, that as we understand it, much of the information that is now under consideration for the court is already in the public sphere. The right case to analyze this under is Algier. Algier would dictate in this case that the court recognize there's a presumptive right of access to this material, and that the presumption, the balancing test that would be needed to overcome that presumption of access has not been satisfied here, particularly because so much of that information is already in the public sphere. That must be an animating factor here, and we ask the court for that reason to grant access, both publication to the courtroom and, in our view, publication on the cameras as well. But we again do recognize that middle step is a meaningful one, and if the court were to decide that information be shared in the courtroom but not on the general feed, we would recognize that as well as a meaningful step towards transparency in this case.
So this is arguments currently. We're a little behind here. They're all the way up here. This is arguments for releasing information directly as it becomes available in court to the public so the public can see it as well. And they're arguing, will this be too disruptive to the case that this information? Now, they're arguing transparency, that people will get to see this and they will be more aware instead of all the conspiracy theories and shit that are going on. This was the discussions at the time. I thought it was important, so this is why I've come back to it.
Counsel?
So now it's counsel for the Kirk
Jeff
family.
Nyman on behalf of the Kirk family. And we appreciate the court is trying to balance here, but the Kirk family's waited 10 months for this hearing. And they have a right to be here, and they have a right to hear the evidence. They have a right to see and feel what's going on in this courtroom. Just like, and they want to understand, Judge, what you were viewing. They want to see the evidence. And we understand you have to balance. But at a minimum, this courtroom needs to be open for the evidence to be displayed openly in this courtroom, for them to see it. The Utah Constitution gives them the right to be here, and to be here and not to see the evidence, what's the point of being here? We ask you to let the evidence be seen in the courtroom, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, counsel. Anything further as it relates to exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 as it relates to what's been briefed or any other arguments? I just want to make sure it has all been received before the court issues its ruling.
No, thank you.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. And just to be clear, as it relates to the state's request, 16. So under the three factors, or the three levels: admission to the court, publication to the gallery, and then publication beyond the gallery. What is the request for each of these exhibits?
We are asking. Your Honor, we are asking for admission. We are asking for publication within the courtroom, but not publication electronically on to the electronic coverage in the courtroom or of these proceedings. We do want to make clear that once the exhibit is admitted, that the witness will be reading from portions of the exhibit, but again, we're not asking that be displayed in any way so that those outside the courtroom could capture that and reproduce it.
Thank you. The court just wants to. And just for clarification, 16.1 is the text messages, 16.2 is Discord chats, and 16.3 is photograph of notes.
I don't think the lag is
That's
me,
correct, Your Honor.
but
Is photograph of notes.
That's correct, Your Honor.
let me try.
And finally, and this hasn't really been addressed by any party, but it is a factor the court
Pause it.
it's
Let me try
weighing.
again.
How much of 16.1 has been published to the public? prior to these proceedings. And this is open to all if you wish to weigh in. I just want to make sure that that's clear because that wasn't really addressed in the briefing.
Again, I want to apologize. I
and
don't
it's
think
a
this
factor,
is me.
so I want to make sure that
I think it might have been lagging
issue
on
has
Court
been
TV's end.
presented by the parties.
Because their video is jumping,
If you
but
choose to.
the talk isn't. Hopefully they clear it up there. Also, to be clear, this is from earlier today. They took lunch at 3:30, they're back at 3:30, so they went to lunch at 2:30, so they should be just about starting back up again. I wanted to catch up with some.
16.1 is 18 pages total of photographs of text messages. It's approximately 5.5 pages of those 18 pages that are reproduced in the information. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. I appreciate you doing that.
So they're clarifying the information that will be shown to everybody in the
Anything
court.
further?
And it's the
from
text
any
messages
party?
between Tyler and the trans boyfriend, which they did end up getting
To
shown,
defense?
and the trans boyfriend did appear via
prosecution?
video
No, Your Honor, thank you.
in order to testify what he knows, or his truth that he's
Let me
telling.
just point out for the court that in addition to the text messages, I believe, I haven't seen the other exhibits, but I believe that at least the note itself, which is another one of the exhibits, is also described in the information.
Thank you. Ms. Kirk's victim representative attorney.
This has not been easy, as you can imagine. And I think the family deserves to see the evidence that's been gathered in this investigation. They deserve to know what happened to Charlie. So we urge the court to please, again, display the evidence here in the courtroom.
Thank you. Thank you to all parties. I appreciate the diligence and hard work that you've put in briefing, argument. These are important exhibits as it relates to what should be considered for, again, to be clear, these exhibits are being admitted to the court in its entirety. The question before the court is publication. It's in the courtroom and beyond the courtroom. And so this is the ruling as it relates to the briefing. And I know it wasn't a formal motion, but I'm just trying to be thorough.
So let me see if I can fix this. This is 3 hours and 16 minutes. I'm going to refresh it because you can hear the voice,
Will
but
you
it's
take
really
a look at
annoying.
Exhibit 35?
So they're live here currently,
Do
but
you
they're still.
recognize that?
I don't know if
Yes, I do.
anybody else is getting this. It's still a
Can you
lag.
take a moment to orient?
Like the whole fucking channel is lagging?
Different from the circumstances here, the statements, the types of statements from defendant that we're talking about. In Rideau, what the police did was orchestrated a recording of an uncounseled, unmirandized police interrogation. The police recorded that interrogation. It was leading questions. They recorded the defendant answering those leading questions.
Okay. Looks like
And
you've been able to
then
clear it
they
up a little bit.
immediately, it was the police that immediately released that recording to the press, who then publicized and televised that. The defendant confessing to police, answering the police's questions. That's not the types of statements that we're dealing with in this case. What we're dealing with are statements that defendant voluntarily made to close friends and associates of him and his roommate. Sorry, just one other point about Rideau and that dissenting opinion. It's interesting that in that dissenting opinion, that judge that the court relied on in Estes continued on in his opinion and said it's an impossible standard to require that a trial court be a laboratory that's completely sterilized and free from any external factors. So again, it's hard to see how Rideau has any precedential value, and even if it did, the circumstances are completely different than from the types of statements that we're dealing with here. The state has also cited to several other courts that have easily distinguished Rideau and have made it clear
So
that
both sides
there is
are
no
arguing
blanket ban
against the
on
court at this point,
or
that they
publishing,
seem to generally want all the
especially just
information
in court.
not only made
defendants-
available in court, but also to be able to be disseminated to the public as well. And I think the court up to this point has not wanted that to be fully the case. So they're arguing, okay, if it can't go all the way, is the way I'm looking at it. I'm not a court professional here. I'm not a lawyer. But they're arguing about, okay, if it can't be disseminated to the public, or maybe even the public can't view, which we're doing with court TV, really, but if the information can't be disseminated fully to specifically the exhibits that are coming out, the information that they have, that it should at least be fully shown to everyone that's in the courtroom presently, including the Kirk family. I'm sure the judge wants to spare the Kirk family seeing a lot of this crap all over again, because it's not just Erica that's there, Charlie's parents are there as well.
Be inadmissible at trial. The court did not hold that that was a violation of the defendant's fundamental rights there, that the court could deal with that through voir dire. It was not inherently prejudicial. And then the state has also cited to the Ohio case of Mamon, and then also the Alabama case, Burgess versus State, where those courts reached essentially the same holdings, easily distinguishing the Rideau
So I want to see what they end up making, the decision they make, and then we'll move on.
And making it clear that there's no blanket ban on publishing a defendant's admissions, and also that Rideau is easily distinguishable. And the court, because the court can deal with those pretrial publicity issues in the way that we've discussed several times already through the tools that the court has available in selecting the jury. I think it's also important to point out that transparency is critical in this case. This court's noted repeatedly the extensive media coverage. That's why we're having to take this additional time in these hearings to be able to discuss these issues. And transparency is critical to the state's right and the people's right to a fair trial. Where there's a vacuum in the evidence, it just fuels speculation.
Yeah, the Candace front jobs have been just they're in overdrive right now because they're losing.
It's
so they're coming up with the aliens did it. There was a second shooter on that other roof. There was a bullet there. By the way, I'm going to explain that one away in a little bit.
If the victim representative is only able to be here physically,
the bullshit out there
but then
is
is
bad.
shielded from some of the evidence. Does the court have any questions?
No, not,
Thank you.
not this time. Mr. Novak.
Thank you, Your Honor. The parallel between Mr. Robinson's case and the Rideau case is this. Mr. Rideau's confession was televised by an act of the state. It wasn't a confession broadcast through a courtroom. It was a confession made to law enforcement and then broadcast by action of the state. And that's what gives rise to the constitutional problem, which is its state action, which violated Mr. Rideau's right to a fair trial. This court has granted the media's request to electronically publish this entire proceeding. That's state action. And the state has supported the media's request over Mr. Robinson's objection. So that is also state action. So that's the parallel. If there were no cameras in this courtroom, we would not have a problem. And in fact, Ms. Kurtz's attorney's briefing seeks a remedy which has nothing to do with the cameras in the courtroom. What Ms. Kirk's counsel seeks is the opportunity for people in the courtroom to see the evidence. So the state is going even further than Ms. Kirk's counsel. The state wants to publish what it calls confessions in the same way, essentially, that the state published Mr. Rideau's confession. Now, the only other thing I want to talk about is that Mr. Ballard's correct that the blanket rule that there is unrebuttable prejudice, it's stated in Rideau. We could talk about why dissenting judges say, oh my God, the court has established a rule and I don't like it. That's what's going on there. But it was in the Skilling case, a Supreme Court decision in 2010, where the court said, yes, we really are going to let judges decide whether potential juror exposure to pretrial publicity makes them makes them unable to serve. But there is an extreme case. That's not my language. That's the Supreme Court's language in Skilling. There are extreme cases of pretrial publicity where prejudice is going to be presumed. And so that's obviously about what has to be proven in terms of the prejudice. But when it's an extreme case, what the Supreme Court is saying in Skilling is there's a presumption. And I believe that this court has already made findings over the last 9 months that this is an extreme case with respect to the quantum of pretrial publicity, the way in which it's being monitored by the public, the speed with which these proceedings, even this week, are being dissected and broadcast through all of the technology channels that we have. So it's our view that this is the extreme case that the Supreme Court talked about in Skilling. We wouldn't have any state action giving rise to this problem if we didn't have cameras in the courtroom. And that's why we think that Exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3
I'm going to let this play. I'm going to check on something.
need to be managed in the way we've asserted. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Ballard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly, Mr. Novak's misrepresented the state's position. We're not going beyond what the victim representative has asked for. As we made clear in our briefing this morning, that we filed this morning, we are asking that these exhibits, unredacted, be published in the courtroom, not electronically, but they be published in the courtroom. It's not the
Be shared in the courtroom, but
16.1 appears not in the information. Again, I'm just trying to create a record of what is out there from your perspective so the court can consider that in its analysis.
I had to skip back ahead. I was replaying some old stuff. Apologize about that. So we're going to see after this, it looks like hopefully a decision is made here. Then we're going to jump forward to the trans furry boyfriend. Will come on video after the break, and he will testify in front of everybody at the court. Fucking all sit here in silence? What the fuck are we doing?
Text messages. It's approximately 5.5 pages of those 18 pages that are reproduced in the information. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. I appreciate you doing that on the fly. Anything further from any party? To defense?
No, thank you.
To the prosecution?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Media?
Oh, the media would like to
I'll
make
just point out for the court that in addition to the text messages, I believe, I haven't seen the other exhibits, but I believe that at least the note itself, which is another one of the exhibits, is also described in the information.
Thank you.
Okay, so he's counsel for the media. Okay.
The Ms. Kirk's victim representative attorney.
This has not been easy, as you can imagine. And I think the family deserves to see the evidence that's been gathered in this investigation. They deserve to know what happened, Charlie. So we urge the court to please, again, display the evidence here in the courtroom.
Thank you. Thank you to all parties. I appreciate the diligence and hard work that you've put in briefing, argument. These are important exhibits as it relates to what should be considered for, again, to be clear, these exhibits are being admitted to the court in its entirety. The question before the court is publication within the courtroom and beyond the courtroom. And so this is the ruling as it relates to the briefing. And I know it wasn't a formal motion, but I'm just trying to be thorough in my approach. This matter comes before the court on state's request to publish exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 during the preliminary hearing and defendant's objection to that request. The exhibits consist of text messages between Mr. Robinson and a witness, Discord messages between Mr. Robinson and others, and a written note the state attributes to Mr. Robinson. Attorneys for Mr. Robinson argue the publication of the exhibits during the proceedings subject to electronic media coverage would create a substantial risk of prejudice and impair his rights to due process under the 14th Amendment. The defendant relies on Rizzo versus Louisiana, Estes, and Skilling, and asks the court to consider any admissible exhibit for the purposes of the preliminary hearing while limiting their public display or broadcast. The state responds that Rizzo and Estes do not require a categorical restriction here. The state argues that the exhibits are materially different from the televised custodial interrogation at issue in Rizzo because they are written communications allegedly made outside law enforcement custody. The state also argues that the potential prejudice can be addressed through trial management measures, including voir dire, and that the victim representative has an interest in being present for and able to follow important criminal proceedings. The court has considered the parties' arguments, the nature of the exhibits, and the procedural posture of this preliminary hearing. The defendant's due process interests, the public nature of the criminal proceedings, and the interests asserted by the state and victim representative. On the present record, the court is not persuaded that the publication of Exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 during the preliminary hearing creates the type of inherent or presumed prejudice that requires categorical restrictions under Rideau, Estes, and Skilling. Unlike the broadcast interrogation in Rideau, the exhibits at issue are written communications allegedly made outside police custody and are being offered in the ordinary course of a judicial proceeding.
Court is so
That
tedious.
distinction
You're
does
just
not
reading
eliminate
back
the
all the arguments
possibility of
that they just
prejudice,
made to clarify.
but it weighs against treating publication
Like
of the
we just
exhibits
fucking heard
as
all.
presumptively
Just rule on it.
unconstitutional. The court further finds that any potential prejudice arising from media coverage may be addressed, if necessary, through the appropriate trial procedures, including voir dire and any other measures warranted before trial. This ruling is limited to publication of the exhibits during the preliminary hearing and does not determine their admissibility at trial, and I insert if one occurs, or foreclose any later request for relief based on a more developed record. Accordingly, the defendant's objection is overruled. As it relates to this preliminary hearing, the state may publish Exhibits 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3, and the court is authorizing, with the exception of the third to last page on Exhibit 16.1, because it contains information including a phone number and address to be redacted before publication in the courtroom. But as it relates to 16.1, because it was publicly distributed by the state, that 16.1 in its entirety may be broadcast through electronic media. That is the ruling of the court.
Okay, so they're going to allow the prosecution to allow all the information
Counsel
for those
Howard, we'd like
exhibits
to
to be
proceed.
released. That's the reason you're seeing them online right now through.
Your Honor, just to clarify the record, the state has redacted that portion. We anticipated that needed to be redacted in
Sarah
16.1,
Fields.
so we have redacted that
Right.
portion.
Brain fart.
We believe that the best way to proceed now is we have the edited video ready that comports with the additional edits that the court has ordered. We propose that we take a break so that we can show that to the defense, make sure we're on the same page, and then we anticipate coming back and playing Exhibit 16.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
that's
I appreciate the caution being exercised by all
that's the
parties.
break,
We'll
and
take
then
a
there's the
15-minute break.
confession. I'm going to go past their break, and we're going to go to the tranny furry boyfriend coming to give a little chit chat.
For roommates? Yeah.
Looks a lot different here, doesn't he? Almost looks like a normal human being. He's not in his the famous photo of him in his little furry doggy costume with the ears, looking like showing off a lot of these feminine features. I went a little too far ahead. If this is too much of an issue, I have it queued up on another screen so we can focus on it specifically. Because their feed has been having issues. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find it, and then I'm going to bring it up here, and then we're going to watch it that way. All right, they're going to put it on all the screens. Here we go.
Put it on all screens. No, I appreciate.
No, this is.
It
I'm
is,
sorry.
so it is.
This is him. This is Tyler visiting the campus on more than one occasion. Bear with me 1 second, and I'll bring the tranny boyfriend up. And of course, these are after I already looked at them. They're going to refresh anyway, and they're going to be a pain in my ass. And I already had this up. And now don't tell me that the one that I want isn't here. We're going to watch it either way.
From someone also
Nope. Sorry, folks. Bear with me 1 second. These are text messages between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs. They were also shown, and some of those are here. While I'm looking for this, I'm going to show these ones. So Sarah Fields was able to bring this up. This was text messages between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs released in court. One of the things that you're seeing online is you're showing Tyler Robinson's name on the text messages, and then all of the other side, instead of saying whatever little pet name he had for him, it says roommate. It's because they have printed out the screen, and they've made the change so it just says roommate. I don't know why they would do that. We're already aware of Lance Twiggs' full name. Unless they didn't want to show the pet name, it wasn't appropriate, or there was something else in there. I'm not 100% about that, but I'm going to play this for you while I search for that one.
Along.
Okay. And Tyler says, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. And then Lance replies, you weren't the one who did it, right? And Tyler says, I am, I'm sorry. Lance says, I thought they caught the person. And then Tyler says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude and interrogated someone.
And the crazy old dude was the one that started waving his arms and saying, it was me, I'm the one that did it. And a whole bunch of others. He ended up being a pedophile, and he ended up also being at 9/11 and on that day. It's some crazy information came out with this old crazy nut job. But he's the one that started distracting, waving his arms, going, it's me, it's me. That's who he's referencing in the text message.
When in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering.
We could scroll down to page 3. Continue reading.
Lance says, why? And Tyler says, why did I do it? And Lance says, yeah. Tyler says, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully, they have moved on. I haven't seen anything in the news about them
by the way. I just
finding
want to
it.
finish this.
We'll update you shortly, or sorry, we'll update you by midnight. And then Lance says, all right, stay safe. How long have you been planning this?
Scroll down a little bit, please, Kimberly.
See, now in the text messages, I think this is why no specific names are popping up. So it's just the messages. So now I understand it a little more clearly. So the way I'm seeing it is, in order to establish who is who on this printout, it shows at the top, as it would for yours and my phone, that I am the person looking at this phone having the conversation, and then one bubble's mine, the other bubble's the other person, but it doesn't say their names, right? It's color coded. Mine are one color, the other person I'm corresponding with is the other color. So when they put that sheet out, it shows Tyler Robinson is one. They've clarified which one he is. The other one is a clarification that it's roommate. For whatever reason, they didn't want to put Tyler Twiggs' name, whatever the fucking Lance Twiggs' name on there. But that's the reason they've done it, to overly show to everybody and clarify who is talking in which bubble, so they and then eventually the jury will not be confused on who is saying what to whom.
Tyler replies, a bit over a week, I believe.
And the bullshit conspiracy theories are up. We're going, oh, look how they fucked it up. There's a little bit of a gap right there. You see how they're fucking with it, and the feds are fucking. This is why it's important to not just get the bullshit from the Candace Owens fans and her nutjob crew, and actually do a little digging and figure all of this out. There's a rhyme and reason to everything that's happening here. Don't believe the conspiracy theory nutjobs online.
I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it.
We can scroll down to page 4. Continue reading about halfway down. I'll stop you about halfway down.
This is while they were spot, but I don't want to chance it while they were parked there. If they had found it, I imagine there would be more commotion. Again, I'm sorry for roping you into all of this. You shouldn't have to worry about this. And Lance replies, does anyone else know? Tyler says, not to my knowledge.
All right, I'll stop you there.
Okay, so that was and a lot of us are aware of those at the time that it was happening, if you were following it in real time as it was breaking down. And then some of these messages started coming out, or people were like releasing them on Discord or something. You're aware of some of those. Now, here is the trans boyfriend appearing via video with his representative, and he's going to say his piece here.
So he acted erratically. Was he pacing? Was he just sitting down, relaxing?
No, he was walking around a lot.
Right, and that's within the home.
Mm-hmm.
And did he talk about what he had done?
Didn't go into detail. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was. He started crying a little bit and said he wishes he hadn't done it, and then kept going around and just doing stuff, I think, to keep himself busy or distracted or something.
Okay. Did he talk about what he was going to do next?
Court went out.
And then eventually said that he would talk to his parents or turn himself over.
Okay. And when you left, was that how you left, understanding that he was going to turn himself in or go to his parents' house?
Yeah, and I didn't really want to be at our apartment while any of that was happening, regardless of what went down.
So I'm actually going to play the whole thing for you because that was just a clip. They're saying, in a recording, Tyler Robinson's trans lover, Lance Twigg, says Robinson was acting erratically. After allegedly killing Charlie Kirk in the bombshell video, Twigg said Robinson told him that he wishes he hadn't done it. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was. He started crying a little bit and said he wishes he hadn't done it. And then eventually Robinson said that he would talk to his parents or turn himself over. So let's go back to, because this was the guy reading the messages, so we'll jump ahead a little bit and actually get everything that he has to say, not just that clip.
Benefit right.
Okay, here we go. Lance Twigg's meeting. We'll get the full thing and not just a clip of it, because I'm curious about it myself. I don't remember.
This meeting is to use your statement here instead of your testimony at a preliminary hearing. Understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in order to do that, I need to place you under oath and also give you an admonition about false statements, okay? First, you do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give in this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I also need to notify you that you are notified the statements you are about to make may be presented to a magistrate or a judge in lieu of your sworn testimony at a preliminary examination. Any false statement you make and that you do not believe to be true may subject
So
you
they're just
to
swearing
criminal
him in at this
punishment
time.
as a Class A misdemeanor.
I'll say,
You understand that?
Yes.
I know it feels like it was forever ago. I don't remember him going back to him in his boyfriend's apartment after the shooting.
In addition, I
thought,
just want to make sure that
and in his testimony, in the clip that I just showed you, he said that he came back home, he was pacing, he was erratic, he was saying it was me that did it, and I need to go tell my parents. It could be my recollection is wrong, but I don't remember him going back to their apartment.
I'm going to cover some of the things that you've already talked about, but
I don't know.
to make it as part of this record.
You guys can let me know if you remember any of that.
First, what's your name?
Full name with middle name or just first and last?
First and last is fine.
Okay, my name is Lance Twiggs.
And do you know Tyler Robinson?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
And this is the same Tyler Robinson that's been charged with the shooting of Charlie Kirk?
Yes.
And would you say when you first met Tyler?
I think it was 2023. I've known him longer than that, though. That was, I think, the first time I met him in person.
Okay.
And will you describe your relationship with Tyler when you first met him?
That's their sound, not mine.
When I first met him, I didn't know him super well. He was just a new roommate, so I knew he knew my friend group, and I knew he liked playing games, but that's about it when we first, when he first moved in.
Okay. Before I go on, I realized my mic was muted at the outset. Was yours on, your microphone?
No, I think that's
Okay. I'm going to repeat those admonitions just to make sure we've got it recorded. Okay, so again, I place you under oath. Just to make a record, I'm going to do it again. You do solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give in this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
And again, I'm going to give you the false statement admonition.
Sorry, hold on. They're saying that it's echoing, so I think.
Yeah, see,
is
they're
on.
saying it's
Okay,
echoing.
sorry.
They're calling in by video. They're having technical
Okay, you don't
issues.
have to mute my mic.
That's fine. Okay, so we should be good. All right. Is that mic on?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, okay, sorry about that interruption. All right, so you said when you first met you were roommates?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at some point, your relationship progressed to something more than just roommates, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
I think we started dating 2 or 3 months after he moved in.
Okay. And where did you live at that time?
St. George, in an apartment complex.
And is that apartment the same place you lived when on September 10th?
Yes.
When you lived there with Tyler, were you in the same room? Did you live in the same room or different rooms?
No, separate rooms.
And at that time, let's say September of 2025, what were you?
I'm sure it is nervous. You see the jaw movements. I don't know if he's chewing on the inside of his mouth or what he's doing, but if you see that, he's fidgeting and he's doing some stuff like that.
What are you doing with your life? Are you working, school?
I was working.
I seriously doubt they let him chew gum for this.
Doing like bathtub and shower repair and stuff in new construction.
Okay. How about Tyler?
I think he was both working. I think he was working for an electrician company then, and he was also in a trade school for being I don't know, higher ranking electrician. I'm not sure how the trade system works for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he was both.
What was his typical work day like?
I think he'd leave around 7 generally and get back around 3 to 4, depending on where the job was and how long it was for the day. And then on certain days of the week during school, semesters, he would then later in the day, I think around 5 or 6, go to school. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's jump to September 10th. Did he spend the night in the apartment the night of September 9th into September 10th?
Into September 10th? Yeah, he did. Yes.
Do you know when he left the apartment on September 10th?
I don't know an exact time. I just know he left early. I heard him leaving, and he just said he had a long drive to work that day, so he was leaving early.
Okay, so early. Any guess as to what when that was?
I don't know. I would have thought it was 5 a.m. because that's when an early work day was for him, but it was probably more like 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna have him spit out his gum.
Maybe he does have
I
gum?
can do that.
You know, that shit right in front of your laptop.
Oh, here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's. Oh, they made him spit it out. He did have gum. What? Why would you do that? How unprofessional.
All right, so what time did you get up on September
I understand you're nervous. Suck it up, Queer.
Probably 12 to 1 p.m.
You didn't have to work that day?
No.
And did you hear from Tyler? Did he call or text you before then?
No, he sent that message in the group chat I mentioned, but he didn't message me directly at all that day.
Okay. When did you first hear from him on September 10th?
It was at 11 o'clock with that, like, automated message.
Okay, 11 p.m.?
Yeah.
So they go out here, again, not me. A video issue or something happens here. So an automated message that gets sent at a certain time and you can put what you want it to
What
say.
about,
I've never heard of that. Has anybody else ever heard of that?
he asks you here, remember how I was engraving bullets? Was he engraving bullets before this?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, but he had said he was planning to go hunting with his family. And he asked.
So they've lost video, they've only got audio, and now they're talking about how they kind of jumped to something else. I don't know if this was not allowed to be shown to everybody, and it's one of those things the court did not agree to. So now we've jumped to, was he engraving bullets? Yes, he was. And then he's saying he's asking why, and then Tyler claims he's going hunting with his family.
Me for if we had a Dremel because he said he wanted to engrave messages on bullets. And I just told him where Dremel was, and
by the way, why would you mark bullets so you're going hunting so the deer can know that they've been killed with extreme prejudice? Like you write fag on a bullet and then shoot the deer with it, and you're like, ha, faggot.
Told him to make sure he doesn't set off a bullet on accident in the house. But I didn't really think about it until then.
How long before September 10th was this that he asked about the Dremel?
I don't remember, because he'd been talking about the hunting/camping trip for a couple months, but I don't remember when he was specifically asking to engrave the bullets. So
are we talking like a year before?
Oh no, not that long. It would have been, I'd say, at most a month before this was when he was asking.
Okay.
I don't know why they're not doing video.
You talked about the note that he left. I want to bring this up, and I should say that these text messages that we've been looking at here are Bates number 54. Okay, the notes have been titled 16.3 with a note, and this is Bates number 58. Do you recognize that on the screen there?
Yeah.
What do you recognize it as?
That was the note under his keyboard that he was referring to in the.
Okay, so my guess is going to be this. This is parts they are showing evidence. We are not allowed to see it currently. This is why Court TV is blanking out the screen. You can only hear the voice, and this is being shown to everybody in the court because they would have addressed the video failure by now. So this is stuff that is staying in court, and we can only get verbally currently. If I turn the closed captioning
so
on.
Where did you find this?
On his desk underneath his computer keyboard.
And I assume you read it.
Yeah.
And then what did you do with it after you read it?
I believe I just put it back down on the desk after I took a picture of it.
Okay. And again, the time you read it was probably around 11 o'clock or so on the 10th.
Yes.
The night of September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And did you ever see that again after you placed it back on his desk?
No, I don't think I did.
And that was a desk in his bedroom?
Yes.
And that's a separate bedroom than your bedroom?
Yeah.
And now I want to go to what's been titled 16.2. And do you recognize this series of messages here?
Yeah, that was.
So that was odd, by the way. So they're referencing that letter that got left under Tyler's keyboard in his room that said, I'm sorry, my love, I'm the one that did it, or whatever. So he says so the trans boyfriend goes in and says, I went in there, looked underneath it. I don't know at Tyler's prompting, or he just like magically guessed it. I don't know. Saw the note underneath the keyboard, took a picture of it, and then put it back and walked back away. And then it was gone afterwards. That's odd, because I don't think that's the way that went down either.
It was the server, like his friend that I was mentioning.
Okay, and this is your phone again?
Because he was told in a message, look under my keyboard, right?
And I'm assuming you recognize it because the big crack up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a server. Is this Discord?
Yeah, this is Discord.
And who are members of this server? I don't want names, just generally. Who are these people? Members of
this is his friend group. They played D&D together every week.
Okay. And I just want to scroll through this to make sure that you get a chance to take a look at it. Or go to the next page.
Mm-hmm. Or yes.
So, Tyler Icom, who's that?
That's Tyler Robinson.
These other people are just others that are members of the server?
Yes.
Jug, Barnaby, Marina, DM.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, DM means Dungeon Master. So these are like, most of them are names they're using in the game they're playing currently.
Got it.
Just for everybody just coming in, they've done this on purpose because there's some of the exhibits they can't show. So you're hearing the audio of what's going on, but Core TV has had to blank out the screen, so you can't actually see the two of them.
8 p.m. on the 10th or the 11th?
I would think that would be the 11th. Because at least I think so, because I don't think on the 10th that he messaged anyone before me at like 11. So.
And he turned himself in on the 11th, right?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. So again, we're just going to go through this so that we have a record of the messages.
So again, the court can see everybody that's there on the screen that are in-house in court.
Is that
we
an
can't
accurate
because some of the
recording of that
exhibits
thread?
aren't open to the public yet.
To my knowledge, yes.
And that was sent, looks like between September 10th and September 12th. Looks like the last day on this is September 12th. Screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so again, those messages covered from September 10th to the evening of September 11th. Now, September 11th, what time did you see Tyler on September 11th?
Yes.
When did you first see him on September 11th? So this is the day after the shooting.
Yeah, I saw him when I woke up. Like I said, he was up and around doing a lot of stuff around the house. And then I think I saw him after that message where I said I'll come home and say I'm doing laundry, because I didn't want him going to my parents' house right then when he said there was probably cops outside. So I went back home, and it was just him there, and I said bye to him, and then he drove off. So I just went back to my parents' house.
Or maybe video issues, and it wasn't. It's on again, off again.
So he acted erratically. Was he pacing? Was he just sitting down, relaxing?
No, he was walking around a lot.
Right, and that's within the home.
Mm-hmm.
And did he talk about what he had done?
Didn't go into detail. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was. I started crying a little bit and said he wishes he hadn't done it, and then kept going around and just doing stuff, I think, to keep himself busy or distracted or something.
Okay. Did he talk about what he was going to do next?
Nice.
And then eventually said that he would talk to his parents or turn himself over.
Okay. And when you left, was that how you left, understanding that he was going to turn himself in or go to his parents' house?
Yeah, and I didn't really want to be at our apartment while any of that was happening, regardless of what went down.
Okay. Okay, before he came home, had you seen the press releases, any of the media on this?
I'd seen one Instagram link a friend of mine had sent in our group chat, but I hadn't really looked into it at all.
And had you seen the images that were released of the suspect?
I did the next day. I don't think I saw any on the 10th.
I'm going to show you a couple of those images. Okay, I'm on the FBI's website. You can see the URL there at the top. This is some press release about this event. And here on the screen, you see these, looks like there's 2 rows of 3 images.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize the person in these images?
I wouldn't say with 100% certainty just because of camera quality, but that looks like him in terms of the shoes he's wearing, the sunglasses. I don't think I'd specifically seen him wearing that hat, but he was usually wearing a hat, and then jeans. So it definitely, especially the bottom, the last 2, definitely do look like him. Oh, they do look like Tyler Robinson.
And you talked about that with your friends, right? This looks like him.
Yeah, his friends. Yeah, I don't know if I don't remember if I talked about it with any of my friends. And then since I didn't have my phone after that for a while, and I still am not using social media, I don't know on my friends' end.
Okay. All right, I want to back up a little bit now. We've talked about September 10th, but let me get a little bit of context here. So, did you game with Tyler?
Yeah.
What kind of games?
We played some just kind of party games together, like anything that would be multiplayer with a group of friends. There was one game he really liked called Sea of Thieves, where you play as like a pirate, and you can fight against people, but most of it's just like fishing, fighting sharks, skeletons kind of stuff. We played some co-op games where it's like you both have to work together to win in whatever way. Way back when I was just out of high school, when I first knew him online, we played some shooting games together, but I didn't know him very well, so that was just when we had a whole friend group on to play, and he was someone that my friends invited.
Okay. Did you and he ever talk about politics?
He did more than me. I don't really keep up with politics very much. He'd usually talk about stuff he heard on the radio on his drive to work in their work car, since it sounds like their whole crew went in the same car most of the time. But I wouldn't say super consistently, because it wasn't a topic I really contributed much on.
What about Charlie Kirk? Did you ever talk about Charlie Kirk?
I personally had never heard him talk about Charlie Kirk before specifically.
Okay.
I don't think that's true. Now, anyone that's familiar with Turkey Tom, he does backgrounds on people and different either people that are online or situations like this or whatever. He ended up having two friends reach out that used to go over their house and hang out and play Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, he didn't take them at their word. He asked them to provide proof. They ended up showing pictures and video from inside the apartment and telling him things that only friends that have been there could know. And those two said that fucking Twigs here was on drugs, ranting and raving all the time about political goings on, people that were against LGBTQ, and had brought up Charlie Kirk, the both of them, on more than one occasion. So he's lying about his behavior there. Now, there's something interesting that the redheaded libertarian said. I think Lance Twiggs was an asset who wrote those love letters to himself after Tyler Robinson was in custody. I think Tyler was groomed in the Discord chat like the Buffalo shooter, and I believe there was a deep state involvement like every other high-profile U.S. assassination. So one of the things that I'm personally willing to consider is that Twiggs is way more involved than we're being led to believe. DNA of both of them were found on the towel, the screwdriver, and I don't remember if it was the gun, but it's possible that it was the gun. And the towel makes sense because fucking cum rag or something. I don't know, but or skin flakes if they were washing with it. One of the two things. But DNA was found from the both of them, and Twiggs was even more of a nut job overall because he was the furry. Remember, the gay, the furry, trans. And Tyler was just the gay, furry, trans lover. So I remember, and at some point I'll have to go over that and do Turkey Tom's whole breakdown of that. It's like a couple of hours long. You can go look for it too. The friends that are part of this that he vetted and he verified talked about the goings on that happened at that apartment, and it was some crazy stuff. And this dude was out of his mind. He was wild all the fucking time, flipping out about stuff.
How about political issues? So did you ever talk about gender identity issues and LGBTQ rights?
No, not really. Usually if he did talk about politics stuff, it was relating to Trump or current policies being issued or voted on, I think. But yeah.
Okay, so before that you had been?
For a short time, yes.
Okay. And I understand you're going by Luna at some point?
To some people, yeah, but not as an overall thing.
Don't know why they're going in and out, not me. I'm trying to find this stuff on Turkey Tom's page.
Okay.
I'd like to start this video.
I think that's all the questions I have for this portion. Let me check and see if I've missed anything. The Dremel that you talked about, you said he had asked for that, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And had he told you it was to inscribe bullets?
Yeah.
And so did you have a Dremel then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in our, our apartment, we had a section where we kept all our, random tools for household stuff in our, lower basement level pantry. So, yeah.
Okay. And did you give that to him or tell him where it was?
I just told him where it was, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording for the 1102 purposes.
All right, that concludes State's Exhibit 16.
Okay, so, that was preliminary, and the only thing I can think of is he has a full, more detailed testimony, and they're not showing it yet. What I was juxtaposing over here was the people reaching out to Turkey Tom. Hello, I just watched a video on the Charlie Kirk assassin, Tyler. I thought you did a good job. I happen to know Tyler and Lance in real life, and he redacts some of their personal information. I don't take a lot of pictures, so I can't prove it very well, but I'm in Discord servers with the both of them, these are the people that you've heard about in that Discord server. Including the one where Tyler posted his confession. I don't have anything super big to say in relation to the murder, and I hope to stay anonymous. I have some pictures of that and some stories that I can show. I don't know. I know myself, if I was researching them, I'd like to know more about whenever I watch your vids, I would want more information. Let me show some of the stuff the police at the apartments. He does his, so his thing is, okay, it's 47 minutes long. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I swear, okay, here's some of their statements. The apartment would drastically shift from clean to super dirty, depending on the state of Lance's mood. That's Twigs. I don't have too many pictures of most of the mess, but basically he'd start living in the living room and just start turning it into a nest. So-and-so moved out, and right afterwards, Tyler moved in 2 weeks after. Lance had a really big breakdown. The living room went from a place of blank, we could have guests over or something, to it felt like it went to craziness. Lance had a really big breakdown. The living room went from
People still came over, but everyone got weirded out by all the trash. He basically had layers of wires, random Temu trinkets, decorations, random art projects, clothes, and empty alcohol containers everywhere. And if anyone touched it, he would get livid. One friend got banned from the apartment for a while because he kept touching the Temu trinkets. I wish I still had pictures, but I felt sort of guilty and deleted them since I knew Lance wasn't in the right state of mind. For context, I've been playing games with Lance and Tyler for like 6 years. I count myself kind of close to them, but I was trying to separate them from myself because being around them wasn't good for me. I say them, but Tyler was always level-headed and easygoing.
So Tyler was level-headed and he's the nut job. Now Twigs is there saying we were all just pretty calm and there wasn't really any craziness or any political talk and stuff. What are you talking about? Friends that went to the house to play D&D are saying he was a fucking nut job and Tyler was a little more of the calmer ones.
Lance could be anywhere from too depressed to talk to manic, wide-eyes, crazy person. I'll take a brief moment here to comment on the fact that in my original video, this is more or less the impression that I had, judging exclusively from Lance's more significant and expressive online presence relative to Tyler's almost non-existent digital paper trail. From Lance's Reddit account and the things his family members had to say about him, he clearly was more outspoken and in some ways unstable. There were Reddit posts of his mentioning being at odds with his family to the point of being kicked out, and he had also discussed a lot of substance abuse issues, which are a far cry from the quiet, even if uneasy relationship that Tyler seemed to have with his family. What was completely unknown, and as far as I know hasn't been published anywhere, is this combination of hoarding and mania that this person describes Lance as exhibiting. The messages continue. During this first nest phase, Lance started working very rarely. He worked with his dad for a tub repair company. They'd either repair tubs or install them at construction sites. But when Lance was super depressed or just too manic, he'd take the day off and hit his THC vape, drink, and scroll reels. Anyway, 2 weeks before Lance's first nest phase, when the apartment was mostly normal, Tyler moved in with Lance because he'd just dropped out of college and was tired of living with his parents. He had been working with his dad at a stone cutting business where they'd install countertops. Tyler was kind of your normal blue-collar Utah guy. Most conversations with him, he'd talk hunting, camping, gaming, and he loved to talk about fishing. Now, first off, the combination of depressants with cognitive stimulants are leading factors to severe anxiety, paranoia, depression, and even psychosis. And that's without mentioning the documented connection between weed and schizophrenia. Obviously, as I assume most of you know, weed basically has two components, THC and CBD. CBD is not psychoactive, and it's often associated with treatments for anxiety, pain, and inflammation. Meanwhile, THC is psychoactive, and despite and certain people who are sounds like he was using way too much pot, while simultaneously drinking heavily and scrolling reels. If there's any way someone can derive psychosis and mania from first principles, this is definitely up there. Now, in my original video about this topic, I mentioned that there were two specific periods of change for Lance and Tyler by extension. The first was 2020, when the pandemic hit, locking everyone inside their houses and apartments, and therefore driving them to spend a lot more time on the old computer. And as the Discord logs are going to show later, it's probably when Lance and Tyler started to communicate the most frequently, even if they were already gaming and talking prior. The second period was during 2024, which is when Tyler moved into the apartment with Lance. And as their anonymous peer here is saying, within 2 weeks of Tyler being there, Lance began his nest phase, as he puts it. Funnily enough, the one other instance I've ever heard of making a nest in your living room comes from Theo Vaughn talking about what he did during binges of the white dust kind of stimulant, if you know what I mean.
I remember that. I'll make a nest in my living room, dude. Boy.
And more than anything else you can think of.
Turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know?
Yeah.
While this description is obviously played up in its context, it's actually a pretty common experience to start hoarding while in states of paranoid mania, which is what Lance appeared to be going through. From his Reddit history, we know that Lance used to be a big fan of Jordan Peterson, who is widely known as the clean your room guy, repeatedly harping on how your living space reflects your psyche. If this leaker is telling the truth, then it would make sense that as Lance's mental state deteriorated, so did the physical space around him. With all of that information regarding Lance being corroborated by these messages, we also have the reveal that Tyler had dropped out of college and decided of his own volition to move out. In my original video, we had the information that he was in an electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. But based on this matches the picture of Tyler that one can derive from all of the testimonies regarding what kind of person he was. So after about 5 years or so of being friends with Lance, he decides to move in with him. But at this point, there's no sign that the two are engaged in a romantic relationship. Their peer continues. I felt super bad when he first moved in with Lance because it was normal for like 2 weeks, and then Lance went nuts, and the entire downstairs just became his nest. He'd be doing experiments in the kitchen, which were mostly just growing mold in Tupperware mugs, and the kettle with random Temu trinkets and rocks submerged in them. Every once in a while, I'd try to have a talk with Lance and try to get him to realize he needed help without making him go ballistic. Now, this is actually bizarre. One of the things I didn't pay that much attention to in my first video about this was that Lance made 2 posts regarding growing fungi, one of them in r/mushroom growers, and another one of them in r/shrooms. However, they were very brief non sequiturs that didn't at all give the impression of the cult of the lamb cordyceps that takes over one of the characters and makes him want to grow more mushrooms. This is extreme. Say it was all just him being insane. His mom is super shrooms. Lance has always been a little weird and quirky, but never really crazy. He was constantly arguing with his mom every time he saw her, and then ranting about
So here's one part right here where you're saying not politically active. Lance has always been a little weird and quirky, but never really crazy. He was constantly arguing with his mom every time he saw her, and then ranting about Republicans and Mormons when he got home. Now, in his testimony, he says we were never really political, and we never really talked about all of this stuff. This is where I'm starting to think the redheaded libertarian might be onto something. If he pushed, the deep state, I don't know. But if the trans boyfriend was the one with his rantings that pushed Tyler to take this action and murder Charlie Kirk, one of those things, I would do anything for you, my love, type of situations.
about Republicans and Mormons when he got home. I'd sometimes talk with him for like 4 hours of him just ranting about his mom and family. He really hates Mormons. Also, at the time, politically, Lance and I would both probably describe ourselves as libertarian, and Tyler was very apolitical. On his Reddit account, there is one relatively old post about Lance having substance abuse problems, and you could assume that due to over time, it'll be bad enough. And people who like deep in a therapy intake in any way that resembles thing. Another suspicion of mine expressed in the first video. Prior to 2024, neither Lance nor Tyler were particularly political, as they only ever expressed opinions that could be loosely classified as socially liberal, which most young Zoomers are by default anyway. However, this changed suddenly and drastically during the year that they lived together. He had his nest phase for probably 3 to 4 months before he sort of went back to normal. But at the tail end of his nest phase, after we had both talked for a while, he told me he was trans, and that it wouldn't change anything, and that I could even use whatever pronouns and he wouldn't care. Over the next week and a half, the living room got dismantled. He vacuumed and cleaned the kitchen a bit, but he still kept one mold experiment outside for some reason. It was kind of relieving to not see so much trash lying around. We weren't allowed to toss even the most mundane trash like napkins and Taco Bell sauce packets, which there was an entire drawer of, so seeing all the cans and bottles disappear was super nice. Whenever we came over, people commented on how it's nice that we could hang out without being scared of accidentally touching trash or a trinket and having Lance freak out. We'd have a mostly weekly Magic the Gathering night at the apartment where everyone would come drink, get high, and play Magic. Lance started attending again after he became mostly normal. It's interesting to see that him identifying as trans came while he was in his nesting phase, but he maintained it after it had ended. It does startle me a bit how basically all of Lance's friend group, who frequently visited Lance and Tyler's house, just kind of tolerated this going on for months long, but I find it really enough to call him to the tables every time it was his turn. One of my gym buddies was the first to pick up on Tyler and Lance being really close. I was in denial for months because I thought Tyler was straight, and also I kind of did not want it to be true. Eventually, I kind of snapped out of it like the nth time I saw them asleep, cuddling on the couch. I kind of didn't think too much of it since Lance would get super cuddly every time he got drunk, which is how I think they got together, because I'm pretty sure Tyler was a virgin when he moved in, so probably when Lance was in the cuddly mood, probably something happened, but that's just my guess. This is where a lot of things start clicking together. Tyler, an introverted gamer who, as far as anyone could tell, had no prior relationships of any significance, spent 4 months living with his best friend, Lance, who apparently got overly cuddly with everyone while drunk, and simultaneously had the proclivity to drink too often. It's not surprising that this was the outcome of a touch-starved virgin gamer living in the same house as a touchy-feely seeming. Things started to intensify again. I started noticing changes in Lance's political views as the presidential election got closer. He amped up the complaints of old people staring at him, which probably was because he dressed like a stoner and not because he was female presenting, because all he did in that department was grow out his hair and wear mascara every once in a while. He also hated that the construction workers would misgender him, which I thought was weird since he said he was fine with any pronoun. Tyler wouldn't really get political until after the election. He'd sometimes just casually bring up the latest thing Trump had done and complain about what it'd do to the country, but in a very level-headed way. Before the election, Lance's friend group was the quirky LGBT group with a lot of mental illnesses. Not saying the two are linked, but that's how my friends knew them. They're the people who are in Lance's server for the most part. After the election, they became a lot more political, but not to an extremist level.
So, I know you've tuned in to get everything about the court. We're going to get back to that and the trial. This is important because he lied about them not really being political in any way, not really knowing much about Charlie Kirk, at least in that initial talk, and him not really being political and just being kind of chill and doing his own thing. Their friends who have proved who they are, that were in that Discord group, and have reached out to Turkey Tom and are giving him this information, are the ones telling him all this, are saying they started going nutso about Trump, and if I'm not mistaken, they bring up Charlie Kirk in here too.
By this point, I could safely say Lance and Tyler were some flavor of left-wing, while I'd become tired of politics and mostly apolitical, but never anything I thought was like dangerous. At some point, they told me about their relationship and were pretty open about it after that. It became very uncomfortable for me because while I don't think of myself as homophobic, seeing two dudes constantly make out was a bit much. Also, since Lance's room was, imagine how much inconsistent and letting other people, it's all his gender. And as a woman, he still look upon them negatively negatively rating. More erratic again until at the end of December, he just had another nuclear meltdown after having another argument. Also, a couple of months before, we noticed Lance had been growing breasts and said that he'd been taking black market HRT, which I do not know what that entailed, but I think it was making him very erratic. So he basically shut down for like 2 weeks. Mention of possibly one of the most concerning details about what kind of substances Lance's body already imagine suffer default self to be delusional chance he would or produce documented cases of P20s HR. He started talking again, but I was so wrong. I just kind of did it to test the waters. Living room, and so I thought if he was just doing that, he'd be fine. A room to shut up. And then we got quoted to bring up transgenders and sport from the other room, being shouted down literally not even a second after he started his sentence every time. After that, more people showed up, and we started having 2 games going, and the mood mostly stabilized briefly since this person goes into a bit of detail about what happened. But Lance proceeded to throw this guy's extra rare magic cards around, loud thumping around. Lance went man or a rictus grin upstairs full-time and all over the living room and kitchen counters. He started playing on his DS and drawing stuff in. I think either be doing this or his experiment that had 2 copper plugged into the outlet. And the notes Lance left mostly resembled not container with rocks in it, which may be the mold experiments mentioned in the messages. Underneath it is what looks to be a package for a rock tumbler, which makes sense given that Tyler occasionally did masonry with his dad. But it's when we move to what's actually on the table that things get increasingly bizarre. And we have isolated pictures of all of the particularly interesting items. I'm going to say right now that I'm actually a specialist in literally nothing, so this is just going to be me trying to interpret these to the best of my abilities, and the screenshots I'll be looking at will be made available in the description for those of you who want to take a look for yourself and see if you can over is this one, which contains a set of spiral-like scribbles that may be in the word T and idea if this sentence, which is who knows if others, so it's T-U pity page, they're nearby, emoting 5 beeps at the bottom. Although this words created in the early 20th sequel theory surround merits of these theories, not only because Wendigoon should be the one to do that, but also because it doesn't really matter as much as the reason why people are drawn to this topic online in the first place. You see, if you check on Reddit, the majority of people who engage in discussions about the nature of GATE programs are people who were in GATE themselves, obviously, meaning they were, at some point, considered to be gifted. You may have already heard about this, but there's a sizable phenomenon of gifted kid burnout, where people who used to be overachievers in their childhood, usually in the academic sense, could no longer keep up as they got older, and so their life spiraled out of. They were seen to convince themselves a gifted kid older. It would make sense for Lance to still attach this summary. These scribbles look bad. It showed me the ChatGPT text as well, like forever, because talks about how once his family had his original lesson or Jamal's leading in in their late break, Tyler was still. After that, I think Lance had been brought back just a little bit, and he even not gonna lie, I was starting to become really apathetic and not really take care of him. Eventually, my friend who lived across the street from there, his grandpa, I'd be hard pressed to stay sane while living alone with Lance while he's like that. I joined a couple Discord calls with Tyler and Lance would say one thing and then be silent, and Tyler would just talk normally. Tyler even joined a call 2 weeks before the assassination and acted completely normal. All of this is really interesting to me because while we did have an inkling that neither Tyler nor Lance were in their right mind by the time the attack took place, it seems like the situation was that Tyler was being subjected to an incessant barrage of genuinely psychotic ramblings from a paranoid and deranged Lance, who had recently become significantly more political. As is customary for people with these kinds of delusions, they start fixating on prominent people, imagining they have some specific relationship to that person, usually that they're being stalked or otherwise directly antagonized by them. This is probably when the name of Charlie Kirk entered the mix, and while it was probably just one among many delusions Lance would probably forget about by the time his episode ended, it seems it seeped into Tyler's mind as the cause of Lance's problems. Obviously, there's the political context of it, with Lance being trans and Charlie being conservative and criticizing the trans community. But judging from the leaked messages between Lance and Tyler, it does seem Lance himself is taken aback and shocked that Tyler did what he did. If I were to guess, Tyler took some of the things Lance must have said while in a state of delusion to heart, while Lance had already forgotten about them a while later. Their peer concludes his messages by saying, after talking to another friend apparently right after he did the shooting, he joined a bunch of Discord calls asking if anyone had seen the news while breathing heavily. And literally the next day, he was in call just chatting with people while playing his puzzle games. And also for the record, Tyler 100% calls Lance my love
when they were talking alone. So for everyone that's been saying, who says my love in messages, the friends that play Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering with all of them are confirming that Tyler acts that way and calls him my love. So right before the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Twigs is having a manic, drugged out episode where he's bitching about conservatives, bitching about politicians, and bitching about Charlie Kirk, and saying how angry he is that all of them won't accept trans people. Now I'm starting to think, in my opinion, this pushed Tyler to, again, do a situation whereas I will do anything for you, my love, my darling. I will go out there and fix this situation and do it and take this meanness away from you and out of your life. That's what my opinion is on this, because right after that rant, Tyler goes and kills Charlie Kirk after Twig's unhinged mental fucking rant. So that's why I went over Turkey Tom's video, and I wanted to catch this again, because Twigs is on his confession for the first part saying they weren't really political, they didn't really talk about anything or really get upset about everything, and his friends who go over to the house, proved that they have been over to the house, played D&D and Magic, have said he would get on drugs and drinking binge highs, rant and rave about everybody that didn't like trans and didn't like LGBTQ, including bringing up Charlie Kirk. In his first initial interview here, he says neither one of them knew or really talked about Charlie Kirk prior to that. So he's a fucking liar, which we probably already guessed. So did Tyler kill Charlie Kirk? Yes, I believe he did. But I believe he did it for Twigs, that Twigs is part of this. And what I have to also guess now is that in order for his confessions and some of the reasons why he's lying when he's talking about all this, is he's being granted immunity from his part of pushing him into all of this. Now, just to go through some of the other stuff, we'll get back to a little bit of court here, get you guys kind of caught up over what happened with today on day 4, and then wrap this up a little bit. I've got an event to get to tonight. So Sarah Fields coming out here. Candace Owens led thousands of people astray and lied, claiming that Tyler never stepped foot on campus that day. This is embarrassing for her and everyone she's effectively brainwashed. Here's them talking in court about getting him on video multiple times.
And what time is this?
It's just afternoon, about 12:15.
On what day?
On September 10th, 2025.
Okay. What just happened, or what did we just see happen?
The individual actually kind of rolls over the railing onto the roof of the Losi building.
All right.
And again, in the top left corner, the individual is now seen running across the rooftop of the Losi building to what would be the southwest corner of the building, crouching down and then crawling to the corner of the building.
And this is at what time?
Around 12:23. I think the timestamp on the video is 12:22.
On the 10th?
On September 10th, yes.
So on September 10th, the day of the shooting. So here's Candace Owens.
In fact, according to my source, Tyler has never even stepped foot on UVU campus.
Another one of Candace's sources. We've heard about all of her sources, right? And how great they've been. Didn't he have the nut job who said he walked onto a military base and saw Erica Kirk having a secret meeting and arranging her husband's death? Remember that nut job who was proven to be crazy and saying his wife put him in a dog cage and beat him with a stick or something, but it was actually him that attacked his wife? These are Candace's sources. And there's him walking there. Okay, we're going to bring over this here. Again, Sarah Fields doing great work, bringing reporting out here to everybody. The state's third witness, Utah Department of Public Safety, Sergeant Jennifer Fomina, testified that the FBI DNA testing identified DNA belonging to both Tyler Robinson and his roommate Lance Twiggs on the towel wrapped around the rifle, as well as on the screwdriver recovered from the sniper perch. But, you know, if you're taking things from the house, it makes sense that both would be on there living in the same apartment. So Gina Milan here saying people do realize Tyler Robinson confessed to his parents that he killed Charlie Kirk, and they are star witnesses in the trial, right? We haven't seen this yet because they're preliminaries. They're trying to establish that he can be, that the reasonable doubt argument. Is there enough to say that he can be tried, or he cannot be because they don't have enough information? This is the information period. If you believe his own parents would betray him and throw their son away for your life, you're retarded. No parent would ever do that. By the way, they were offered the reward money for turning him in. They turned it down. Yes, Tyler Robinson's parents, Matt and Amber Rose, are expected to be witnesses for the prosecution in the trial. Tyler Robinson, 23, faces aggravated murder charges and other counts in the September 10th, 2025 shooting death of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Prosecutors plan to seek the death penalty. The ongoing preliminary hearing as of July 2026 determines if there's enough evidence for a full trial. Okay. I'll come over here. I'm feeling like those pesky conspiracy theorists are going to be proven right again, that Lance Twiggs is going to be determined a federal asset who helped set Tyler Robinson up, and in the end we will learn that no gun was ever fired from Losay. Charlie's mic exploded. I'll add that multiple decoy boys wearing maroon shirts were crawling the campus that day. Right? What if they were just wearing the same shirts? If I had to guess, I'd put my money on the conspiracy theorists every single time. But at first, we must be called psychopathic killers with narcissistic tendencies like we were during COVID and every other conspiracy we've been proven right on. So it says, Ian Carroll, her little attack dog here, says it was definitely stated that in the middle of the night, Tyler Robinson's car was allegedly being driven by a bald man with 3 others in the car. Make it make sense. This is one of the other claims that's been brought in, that the neighbors said they saw a car driving around that they somehow knew that was Tyler Robinson's car. Like, is it not possible that another human being could own the same color car and the same type of car and have been driven around? Is it impossible that other people could have the same car as Tyler Robinson? And the neighbors watching from their Ring camera were able to establish that it was Tyler's car and different people were driving. That doesn't sound right to me. Like, what if it's a coincidence and there was another car? I mean, I'm just asking questions. I don't know. Liz Wheeler, see, there's different back and forth about going on with the DNA. DNA on the towel and screwdriver. Lance Twiggs 5%, Tyler Robinson 95%. Lance Twiggs, so that's the towel. The screwdriver is Lance Twiggs 11%, Tyler Robinson 89%. Now, I keep getting different numbers on this, and some other people are claiming that the numbers are more Lance than it is Tyler, but that doesn't sound right to me based on what's coming out of court. Surveillance video shows Tyler Robinson was on campus multiple times, including his vehicle, prior to killing Charlie Kirk. Despite the clear evidence, some are still insisting he never stepped foot there. The evidence is undeniable. The denial is deliberate. Stop gaslighting the public. This is him another day, or earlier that day, checking out. Now, another claim came out, and it says, well, he met with TPUSA representatives. So he's in on it with TPUSA. This must... Why would I meet out in the open with TPUSA representatives in front of a camera in order to discuss how the shooting is going to go later on in the day? My guess is he was scouting the area to make sure he was set up the way he wanted to prior to the event starting, because he was seen talking to the TPUSA crew before the event started. So if I were him and I were planning that, I would go to them and say, hey guys, just want to attend the event that'll be starting in a little bit. I'd like to know kind of where everyone's going to be set up and where Charlie's going to be and some places I might be able to view it from. Just get some basic information from you, because you don't know that I'm going to murder him later on in the day when he starts. I'm just a guy asking questions, and I'm curious about the event. Him talking to TPUSA is not some smoking gun that means that they're involved in it. And why the hell would you meet out in the open? So Alex Jones saying here, Lance Twiggs is the linchpin to the prosecution's case against Tyler Robinson. Learn how Tyler Robinson's transferee roommate provided the key evidence for the case. Plus, Jesse on Fire lays out the background information that indicates Lance Twiggs is far more likely to be a violent activist and assassinate someone for their political speech when compared to Tyler Robinson. I agree with that. I just said that earlier. Twiggs was definitely appeared to be, from multiple people, the worst one out of the two. So I definitely think he pushed Tyler Robinson for it. So I asked Grok about the bullet thing here. We're going to get to that. Nick Sorter putting up, Tyler Robinson's lover, Lance Twiggs, confirms he found a note on Robinson's desk on September 10th admitting he left to go take out Charlie Kirk. Per a subpoena, the note said he called himself Luna, was his trans name, referring to Twiggs. If you're reading this per my text, then I'm so sorry I left the house this morning on a mission and sent an auto text. I am likely dead or facing a lengthy prison sentence. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I took it. I don't know if I or will have succeeded, but I hope to make it home to you. I wish we could have lived in a world where this did not feel necessary. I wish I could have stayed for you and lived our lives together. And we went over a little bit of that earlier, but that's what that note said. Yeah, so this bullet thing, this is another one of the big talking points that are happening online right now. There was a second shell casing, and it was on another building. What do you think about that? There were multiple shooters. I didn't get the chance to go over that fully, so I asked Grok to just give me a summary of all of it. And the Tyler Robinson case, the assassination of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, the discussion about another bullet on another building, refers to testimony and cross-examination during Robinson's preliminary hearing early in July 26. Tyler Robinson, then 23, around the loose center roof around the time of the shooting, firing, and fleeing. Preliminary hearing is determined whether there's enough evidence. Okay, bullet discussion. Defense attorney Catherine Nestor questioned lead investigator David Hull, Utah State Bureau of Investigation, and other agents about evidence handling and scene inconsistencies. Key points raised. Location. A .223 caliber bullet was recovered on the roof of a different building, specifically the science building or computer science building at UVU, southwest of the Courtyard Amphitheater, where Kirk was speaking. Condition. The bullet was intact, unfired, an unused cartridge round. There was no evidence that it had been discharged from a weapon at the scene. No line of sight. Investigators noted there was no clear line of sight from that building's roof to Kirk's location, unlike the Lucy Center roof where Tyler was, where prosecutors say the shot originated. The defense highlighted this bullet and the lack of a spent shell casing or other ballistic evidence on the Lucy Center roof to probe the thoroughness of the crime scene investigation. So they're using this to say you didn't do a good job of searching the whole area. What about this thing? Nobody could have shot Charlie from there, but also you missed it. They're presenting this in order to prove that the search after the fact was not done properly. They missed certain things that were there, even if they weren't related to the case. Therefore, you can't charge Tyler because you did not handle the probe properly. This is what the defense is trying to do. Potentially scene contamination or chaos, and whether all evidence was properly accounted for. They also noted other firearms were recovered at the scene, including a handgun and a backpack. I'll remind everybody when I did day one, this college allows you to carry weapons. I don't know that it's open carry, but you can have weapons on this campus. Hull and other investigators testified that the unfired .223 bullet was accounted for and attributed to law enforcement, meaning it came from the gun of law. I don't know why he dropped a random fucking bullet. After the shooting, the scene was initially treated as an active shooter situation. Responding officers cleared their weapons, ejected unused rounds for safety. Once the immediate threat was contained, the chaotic aftermath and multiple officers on campus explained the presence of the round on another rooftop. So it came from a cop's gun, and it forgot to get picked up after they discharged. They cleared their round. Surveillance video of a person, allegedly Robinson, on the Lucy Center roof in a prone position with line of sight to Kirk, Prosecutors have emphasized other evidence, including him on a prone position on the Lucy Center, DNA of the recovered rifle and towel screwdriver, a note and text allegedly from Robinson confessing or expressing intent, the rifle itself, a different caliber from the .223 that was found on the other roof, which did not have line of sight to Charlie Kirk. So the final things here that are just bizarre to me is the communication that Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro had with Charlie Kirk's security team. Tim Pool's online losing his mind right now because, and I put this up too, on that day, he says, receive reports that Charlie is stable. Thank God, hoping that he makes it. And we're like, what? A couple other people said the same thing. We're getting that Charlie's stable. In the meantime, he was dying in the back of an SUV that was rushing to the hospital. But and now he's trying to argue all this. So Charlie was at the hospital. Clint Russell here is saying Charlie was at the hospital within 10 minutes of getting hit. I flat out don't believe you. You posted he had a pulse an hour later, so not while en route to the hospital, not a chance. And since you're calling me fake, you can now prove me wrong. Tim says, Charlie's team isn't just 4 people. They have logistics, and you know it. My team was in communication with their team and their logistics team then as well, so you're full of shit. Clint responds, so your claim is that you're receiving updates within 10 minutes of the attack, but not from the SUV. Someone on a security team that was not with Charlie was able to update you on his condition while en route to the hospital. You can't understand why people find this weird. He says, Tim says, you're pretending it's weird to make insinuations. Just fucking stop. Clint says, nope. I think you're either lying or were lied to. I did not believe you had an update on his condition from that SUV while driving 100 plus miles per hour to the hospital and also trying to save his life. And whoever told you he was stable an hour later also lied, but you're mad at me. Odd. He finishes by saying, you're such a fucking grifter. No one is getting called from inside the car, you fucking liar. The security team relays to logistics what is happening, and the fucking logistics team sends updates to affiliates, friends, and guards. You just use assumptive reasoning to trick people into drawing false conclusions. You're such a desperate lying hack. But it doesn't change that Tim just jumped right online and posted all this shit without actually So Charlie's team sends this to like a call center type of thing, and that call center distributes all of this information to all of your other guys' security crews, and then your security crews send information to you. So this is like the telephone game that's happening, and then eventually the final message gets to the person, in this case, Tim Pool, who, and I remember seeing it at that time, he's posting, so glad that, I'm hearing he's stable, good to hear. He's pretty much dead at this point. So this is very fucking odd by Tim Pool. I'm not suggesting anything one way or the other, just saying it's odd. Now, you've got Ben Shapiro making the exact same claim, where he came right out and said it on his own. Someone explained to me why during the minutes while Charlie was dying in the back seat of the car, Charlie's security team was providing updates to Ben Shapiro's team rather than focusing entirely on saving Charlie's life and finding the killer. Sorry, but she's right. That's super weird. Ben Shapiro just confessed on his show that while Charlie was being transported to the hospital and bleeding out to death, his security was on the phone with Charlie's security receiving updates.
So, I remember where I was when all this was happening. I was in Los Angeles. I had sort of a breakfast/lunch meeting with somebody. And I got the news that Charlie had been shot, and my security was on the phone with Charlie's security because nobody knew what the hell was going on, while Charlie was still in the back of the car, and we were sort of getting updates along the way. At 2:40 p.m. So, I remember where I was when all this was happening.
That's
I was
the
in
short
Los
clip
Angeles.
right there where it's being emitted. I'm not suggesting anything one way or the other. I just think it's very odd that all of them got this update so very quickly and also got bad information that he was stable. When I do another update, I'm actually going to play the guy that was in the back of the SUV. And his story and his experience of what happened, because I watched it. I watched him cry and tell it at the time. Charlie's security was not really with him when they got taken out by the SUV. They all got kind of split up. and some close friends and maybe a security member or two grabbed them, went to the closest vehicle that was running. They essentially stole somebody else's vehicle, but it was for an emergency. Open up the back hatch, put Charlie in the back, and the driver was already driving away while the rest of them were trying to jump in like it was a Dukes of Hazzard show. And they went flying down the road, and they're holding on to him, and they're trying to do whatever they can. I don't know if they were doing CPR or working on him in any way. And then I think they set the GPS to get them to the closest hospital, and they shot down there. But an ambulance didn't show up. It didn't take him away. He wasn't whisked away in a helicopter by the entire security team. It was a small group of like 4 to 5 people that tossed him in an SUV and took off screaming down the road. The next update I do, because I'm out of time, the next update that I do, I will play him describing the entire thing about what happened in those final moments. I think you guys will be interested to see that. That's everything I have for the current court proceedings. If you enjoyed all of this and you appreciate the work that I've put in, please subscribe and give the show a like and help me in the algorithm, help me grow. And any support that you're willing to offer to the show is greatly appreciated. Thank you, everyone, and I will talk to you all again soon with more updates on the preliminaries of all this. Thanks, everyone.